Okay, and we're back. So, we were talking about fractal frame biological operating systems
Mhm.
and how that most people generally are operating on an operating system that is not fractal. And I'm not going to go into what fractal is because if you look up fractal on YouTube, you'll see Mandelbrot sets and videos of these incredible patterns just that go on and are endless from infinitely small to infinitely large, and it just goes on and on until you can't tell the difference of where you are in the scale anymore. And there's a whole lot to learn there, which is amazing and interesting and fascinating. But the question is, how do I get one of these fractal frame operating systems? And Chris came up with the term, which I love, and it's retrofitting. So you need to until you can transfer over to the new operating system. We do, let's call it a retrofit from the apps that are designed to dock or connect or
Grow.
grow. Beautiful word. I'm glad you're here because you just throw in the words when they're needed. To grow and develop from the operating system, the source of the operating system. So we. Sorry, I'm just getting my train of thought back because.
Oh,
No, it was good. It was good. It's just my mind's going off onto another video in the future that I'm going to make that you're going to watch probably in a few more minutes. So, so what we do now is we retrofit these new programs that are fractally framed, designed to be embedded into and grown from a fractal frame, and we attach them to your current operating system, which is not fractal. Which what's another word for not fractal? How can we describe that? So it's like
non-implosive, non-insane. It's just a frame without it's. There's no infinity to it.
it's a finite.
Finite.
It's a finite operating system, which means it presupposes there's limits to it.
Yeah.
So there's a ceiling, or there's an edge, or there's only a certain depth.
13th floor, like in the movie.
It's a good movie. Watch 13th Floor. You'll like it. It's similar to The Matrix. Very similar theme. So what we do is we retrofit these new fractal frame or fractal apps and programs and coding, and we retrofit them onto your finite operating system, so you can start to use them and start to feel what it's like to be more lucid in your life. But the problem is, because it's an adaptation, you'll fall in and out of lucidity, and you'll be awake sometimes and you'll be on your game and things just are flowing and you're present in the moment and life's amazing and all these things and synchronicities just happen, and opportunities fall into your lap. And then at other times you just feel totally cut off, and it's like, what's going on? How did I get here? How do I get back there? And there's this swinging going on, and like in Rantha talks about swinging backwards and forwards between extremes, like this. On your game, off your game, everything's good, now everything's not good, and there's this duality going on. So, but how do we get to the fractal frame operating system, the biological fractal frame operating system? How do we install that into the bioenergetic system, which is our mind, body, spirituality, connection with the field itself? Is that we need to understand how to lower change our frequency and get to a point where the mind becomes still. Another word for this that Chris used is trance. We need to understand trance and what trance is. And if you've ever looked into neurolinguistic programming and you find that interesting, then you will naturally probably have progressed and gone back to the source, which is Richard Bandler, and understand that, and then also started to look into, it would have led you to Milton Erickson, who was very good at hypnosis and animal magnetism, which was, I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Mesmer, which gave rise to the term mesmerism. So you've got all these things that that talk about changing your state of mind and going into a hypnagogic state where you are in between wakefulness and sleep, and into this dream area, this twilight area, and there's all these levels of spectrum. And if you hook the brain up to an EEG, people will talk about different brainwave frequencies, alpha wave and beta wave and theta and delta and gamma and the whole spectrum. And then that transfers into the light spectrum, and different levels of light, Hertzian and infrared and visible light. What's the next one? Ultraviolet, X-ray, gamma ray, infinite unknown.
Then the musical notes.
And musical notes, another parallel.
What is it? Do, re, mi, so, fa, so.
La, ti, do.
Yep.
So there's all these different levels, and they're all there, present all the time. And the other thing, like in music, is the silence, the space between the notes. Or if you have matter and all these different levels of vibration, then you need to have emptiness or nothingness as well that contains all that, the space in which that arises in. So what we want to do is we want to start to learn how to access all these frequencies and the non-frequency, or the nothingness, or the emptiness, which really isn't nothingness. It's the space in which everything arises from. And when we can understand and start to experience those states, then obviously to be able to articulate and describe the experience of those states, our language needs to change. So our language starts to become fractal. And as we start to think and speak and act fractally from those deeper levels, then the biological fractal frame starts to install itself below the level of the finite operating system, and then it starts to virally affect it and change it, and then all of a sudden it takes it over. And it takes it over in the best possible way, because now you can connect to absolutely anything and everything and at any time and anywhere. And I know this is a real out there idea, and some of you might be thinking, that all sounds like bullshit, and what the hell is this going on, and all that sort of stuff. But I really encourage you to research this and study this and look into it and suspend your disbelief and just, pick words out of what I'm saying, like fractality, fractal, hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, Richard Bandler, Milton Erickson, whatever it is that I've said in this video and the past videos, and I, while I'm in this state, I can't even remember what I'm saying half the time until I go back and look at it, because I'm just allowing this to flow through me. Is that when you start to go into all these different subjects and these different areas and these different topics and the stories of these people that are attached to this, and you start to link into their mind, then all of a sudden you start to have new perspectives, and through these new perspectives then you start to have new ways of looking at things, and you start to have new thoughts. And when you start to have new thoughts, then you start to have new emotions. And then when you have new emotions, then you start to create take new action. And when you start to create new action, then guess what? Your life starts to change. And when your life starts to change, then it will reflect back on you how you have changed, and then it creates this feedback loop, like a Mobius strip. Okay? And then, so what happens is you have this new thought, you have this experience, it goes out, it affects the field, then the field changes, and then it gives you evidence of the change, and then you can get an accurate reflection of who you are. And then from there you can have a new thought, and then it goes out, and the process continues on. And then it's like if you've ever studied chakras and kundalini, and you see the energy moving up, and then it sprouts out of the crown, and then it starts to, like a projection, affect the field, and then your observation of the field comes back, you get a feedback loop, and then it'll process, and then you get a data set from there, and from that data set then you create a new thought, and then out it goes again, and it's just this constant cycle over and over. So coming back to the trance and the state of silence, or the stillness, or going into the void or the emptiness, that gives you a break. It gives you a break to stop and to assess what you've been creating, what that's reflecting, and then you can create new thoughts, and then on you go again. Without that baseline, without that neutral gear, what can happen is you can get into this cycle where you start to forget that you're actually creating the field, and then instead of looking at it objectively and start to get a reflection and create new thoughts and to start to tweak and redesign the field and your dream in a lucid way, what happens is that the field starts to impact you, and then you start to get into this backward loop where the field starts to create your thoughts instead, and then you end up in this awful cycle where you're creating things that you don't even want to have happen in your life. So that's not what we want to do. We want to go the other way. Create the thoughts from the place of stillness, from the trance state. Implant them into the new operating system, create new programs, and once those programs are finished, then we run them, and then they have an effect on reality. Then, like a scientist experimenting on ourselves and in our own life, then we get a data set. We say, okay, this is what happened, this is what didn't happen, this was our aim. Let's, once again, going back to honesty, let's see what's actually happening here. And then from that, we can go back into stillness, back into the trance, back into the void, and we can redesign and tweak those programs, and then run them again until they start creating exactly what we intend. And that's just what we do, and we just go on and on with that. And that gets really exciting, because now you are in total control of your life. And not just like, hey, I'm in control here. It's no, you are designing absolutely every area of your life, right down to the minute detail. If it's there and you like it, then great, leave it alone. But if it's not there, guess what? You can go back into the trance state, rewrite the source code, and then run it again, and guess what? It'll change.